Hola, chicas. Welcome to Encuentras Your Voice podcast, where we share the brilliant stories firsthand of Latinas who embrace their ancestry to start their journey of self-discovery that led to that aha moment. Because that authenticity, that is your superpower. I'm your host, Consuelo Crosby, Peruana, mother, structural engineer, yes, always wanting to raise the roof of Latinas in STEM, and now honored to hold the microphone and make space for Latina voices to speak their truth worldwide. Because when no one else is asking, we learn to just do it for ourselves, for the comunidad. And today, that is exactly the vibe we are bringing to you. Having the brilliant vision to see the need, the sassy vivacity to make it happen, and compassionately doing it with the comunidad at heart, to improve the lives of others. For all you entrepreneurs out there on the verge of burnout, or even feeling like all you do is work, this episode has all the answers on how to revel in the good life while succeeding in business without you working 24/7 on it. In human terms, that defines Ariana Rodriguez, Dominican-born founder of AR and Company, and geeked-out specialist in analyzing businesses to take them to a whole other success level using AI. This is the Insider AI Scoop. Ariana leads us through her stack of go-tos in AI, the hows and the when to use them. So if you don't want to get left behind in the next mode of digital prowess, take a long listen to what Ariana knows and easily translates into everyday terms for all of us. But the biggest wow is learning how much Ariana is a people person at heart and in business. We talk about the empowerment of heritage and personal experience that led to her aha moment, to breaking into tech from a sociology background, the power of community, and finding supportive groups to navigate the startup world. The ins and outs of AI, the value of AI in business, but also how the Latina narrative is missing in AI and the importance of customization and cultural relevance in that database. But most of all, the value of taking breaks and finding balance in a busy entrepreneurial life. Because although burnout led to Ariana's career shift, it is the power of mental well-being and life-work balance that fuels her success. She is sassy, hilarious, and totally focused on getting businesses to be more successful with less human time so that we entrepreneurs can relish in the love of life and letting AI do all the dirty work. And even more so, doing it in our own voice, with our own resources, so that we can chill in community the way that Ariana describes as her perfect universe. For the love of all things Latina, sit back and cherish the energy Ariana brings to life, pick up on the lessons that will make your life easier, and celebrate this Latina, determined to make the entrepreneurial journey an easier one. Welcome to Encuentras Your Voice podcast, Ariana. It's so fun to have you here today because I am such a geek and so ready to dive into everything you know. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation or just to talk to you today.
Yeah,
I know we had a little get to know each other call, and it was one of the best calls I think I had in March.
Oh, I'll take it. Thank you. Yeah, no, we totally geeked out. I felt like, the synergy between us two. We forgot why we were even talking to begin with. I loved it. Loved it. Wish you were on the West Coast. We'll take care of that one day.
One day. I'll eventually convince my husband to move to the West Coast.
Yes.
It's all good.
So we always take time to honor our ancestry and our heritage and archive our diaspora of the Latinidad. So please share with us, what is your cultural heritage and what's your story from your family?
Yeah, so I'm Dominican, born there. My parents and I were all from Santiago, so the northwest of the country. And we moved here when I was 3, and we stayed in the New York region to high school, till I was in high school, and then moved over to New Jersey.
So you were in high school. That's a tough time to move. Okay, high school, moved to New Jersey. What was it like? What was the culture like? Because I
felt
know
like
New
I
York's
was
diverse.
Oh, it's very diverse. So actually, where I live in New Jersey, it's pretty diverse. It was actually surprisingly a very diverse like area, but I felt like I was in a teenage high school movie. Um, like the quintessential suburban town with the football team and the cheerleaders and everybody's in everybody's business. I'd never been in such a small school ever. I think my
Oh,
graduating class was like 112, and it was like one of the largest graduating classes that the school had
oh
in
my
a couple of
gosh.
years.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. I mean, in the high school that I was in, my graduating class would have been like 1,700,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it was, so it was very weird having to go from complete anonymity to like everybody knows what's going on in your life.
Oh. Did you have to
So it
explain
was,
that story over and over again? And did they ever get it?
no,
Yeah.
it's hard to get,
Yeah.
right? It's a really hard story to get for people who don't understand what it is to be in an anonymous system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it was also a really hard story to sell to my teachers and the leadership in the school, because a lot of them, because it was coming from inner city, even though I was in a gifted and talented program, they were very much like, well, you're behind, so we're going to leave you back. And I was like, no.
Oh, leave you behind because we don't want to do the work to bring you forward?
Yes, but because I had been in gifted and talented programs since like I was in 6th grade, I had already done the majority of the curriculum for the grade that I was supposed to be in anyway. So we were reading books that I had read in middle school
Uh,
in like my sophomore year of high school. And they were like, yeah, we're going to leave you back. I was like, no, you're not. So I had to then like really stand in like in what I knew and like what I was doing, and fought with my guidance counselor and everybody else to like really push back on that. So like, there's no way that you're leaving me back when I was supposed to graduate high school early.
yeah, because you have the brilliance, obviously, then, and the discipline and the, I'm going to call it that Latina in you to just go, no. I say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mother was always a big advocate in like what she felt. If she felt something was right
Mm-hmm.
and she felt like she had the power to say something,
Mm-hmm.
she would, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I felt like I had the power to fight back, and I fought back until I got my way.
Well, once they knew what was coming, I can't imagine they went, oh, Ariana, you're so brilliant. Why don't you go into tech?
I wound up being one of the only students in my grade, in my class, that applied to NYU. The majority of the people in my school wound up applying to Rutgers, Montclair, and while those are great schools, I was like, I want to go back to the city. I applied to 3 schools. I applied to NYU, Rutgers, and then there was a third school that I can't even remember what it was. Oh, Fordham.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone was like, those are all really hard schools to get into.
Mhm.
You need to have a safety school. I'm like, Rutgers and Fordham aren't my safety schools. What are you talking about? Rutgers and Fordham are amazing schools. Please don't get that wrong. But for me in my
Yeah.
head, I was like, I
Absolutely.
know that I have the grades to get into this school. So like, why am I going to not shoot my shot? And this is a theme in my entire life. I'm going to shoot my shot for everything. I went to NYU and really studied sociology and education. I was fascinated by the way people learn and the differences between what happens in an inner city and what happens in suburbia, right? Just based off my experiences, and really like why people are learning the way that they're learning. To no one's surprise, it's a very capitalistic system. The public school system in this country is very capitalistic, and it's really meant to create like factory workers, but that's not the point of our conversation here. So I studied sociology. I studied the reason why society does what it does through the lens of education, and tried to really come up with ways that we can teach in schools that were much more culturally relevant to people. We learn via stories, right? So why can't we learn in school via stories? Why are we being taught this rote method that doesn't work for most people?
Yeah.
I worked as a counselor via a nonprofit in a school that had students that were struggling, that were going to get left behind, that were going to get kicked out of the system. And I loved it, and loved it so much that their success was my success and their failures was my failure. And I was about to be burned out at the age of 24. So I had to leave.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I was working like 12-hour days. It was rough. Making like $35,000 a year, like working probably like 10, 12-hour days. Like I would buy things for the kids out of my own pocket. I mean, like, this is like normal stuff that teachers would tell you, right? And I was never trained to be a teacher, to be a counselor, to have that support, right? I had great supervisors and great people that helped and supported me, but it became ultimately too much. I didn't know how to separate myself from the students, right? Like, I was too emotionally invested in them. So I did a huge pivot, wound up in healthcare. And then worked as an operations manager for a really long time in a New York City healthcare system. Right after COVID was like coming down. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to work for healthcare anymore. And I started offering consultancy services online and built my own little like agency to help small businesses like operationalize their businesses, right? And like make good operational decisions so that they can build sustainably.
Wow. So, okay, a lot of things are going on here. And this beautiful, like, compassion you have in every element of your choices in careers. You're always wanting to help people and help people and help people. It's hugely compassionate. When you speak to operations, what is that for business? What is that? What are you speaking towards?
In the simplest sense, operations is how your business is run, right? It is the fancy word on how we do business. So when I come into a business, I look at how they manage their clients. I look at how they manage their employees. I look at how their employees communicate with one another. I look at their finances. I look at a strategic plan of like what's going to happen in the next 5 years. And I really try to figure out, okay, how can we become more efficient with what we do? How can we make this easier on the whole team? And if one of your goals is to grow and scale, how do we make your process rinse and repeat, right? How do we take what you currently have and just duplicate it over and over again so that you can actually scale your company sustainably without burning out as a business owner? Now, I come at this with a human approach. I come at this looking at the people first and making sure that we're being good to the people that you're working with. And that we're actually looking and taking into consideration your values, your goals, right? We're not just building to build. We're building because it's aligned with what you want to do and it's making the changes that you
Which is what we have to circle back around to, right? Is starting a business. And I think it's very easy for the Latinas. Rarely will start a business for profit. They're not going to say, oh, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to do it for as much money as I can make. There's always a compassionate moment for themselves. They really believe in it and it feeds them, it brings them joy. And what they're doing for business benefits so many people. They do it again, the compassion flows outward. And that can get tricky. That speaks to what you're talking about because it becomes emotionally invested.
Yes.
And so there's the burnout point. So how did your study of sociology automatically blend into this operations mindset for business?
When I'm thinking about small businesses as a whole, it's exactly that. We are emotionally invested in our success because it is a small business. This is our baby. We call it our baby, right? We are putting every last penny we have into these businesses in some instances, and very few of them actually hit that multiple 7-figure level. So like we're kind of hustling for a long time. And then seeing that, right? Seeing that level of that trend, I'm like, how can we do this so that we don't burn out, so that we actually can grow and have multiple 7 figures in our bank and have a business that we both love and also can separate from and also take vacation out of, right? And also hire and trust people to do the right work, right? That was one of the questions that like really like sat with me when I started building this. It's like, how can I support people to actually have that dream and then have their business not be the only thing that they focus on? Because we're all multidimensional. We don't just have a business, right? We have a life, families, we have friends, we have whatever. We need to be able to step away from that business. And how do we do that while still making profit? And a lot of small business owners can't do that because of where they are.
Well, you brought up a couple really big points that I want to focus on because I find culturally that that's where the kathunk happens. One of them is trust. You brought up trust, which I have a very difficult time with when it comes to, like you say, this is my baby. This is my baby that I feel if I give out the product to help support, unless I know you really well, I just feel there's a vulnerability that I'm not willing to share.
It's like you trust your family and that's it.
Yes. So how do we get beyond that? How do we get to the point of trusting others that might be outside the community, outside the family that you intimately trust?
So I actually have a podcast episode all about this, but
Oh.
I also so I will send you the link
Yes,
for that.
please.
But it's really all about the hiring process, right? You have to really work on your hiring. So there's a few different things that I like to break out for my people. One, we have to really understand what you're hiring for. We're not hiring for a unicorn. We're not hiring for the jack of all trades. We're not hiring for somebody who can handle 50 million things. You have to figure out what role you're looking for so that you can actually articulate that. Because that's going to make it so much easier for you to then craft a job application process. So one first step is identifying exactly what you want this person to do. Step two, before the hiring process, is then writing out how you want that work done, right? So you know what you want to do. You have to figure out how you want that work done. And then we start hiring and saying, okay, I need somebody who's going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. You're going to ask a lot of open-ended questions to understand how this person is thinking, to understand how this person responds to these questions. When you finally see how people are thinking and you finally have an opportunity to kind of gauge what's going on, you're then able to hire with confidence. And then once you onboard this person and you say, great, you have a job. If you did the pre-work that we talked about, right? Like the identifying what they're going to do and then writing out how they're going to do that. That is your onboarding process. That is a process that says, now I'm bringing you into this company and this is how we do work in this company.
Oh my gosh, it sounds like a full-time job in and of itself.
Yes.
Like how are you running a company when you're trying to do all this work to hire the people? But I get it, but
this
it's
is
a
why
lot.
People have full-on HR departments, right?
Right.
It doesn't take that long.
Okay.
I want to say last year I hired 5 different people. I went through this process 4 times. And I want to say over the span of a month, I probably spent 5 hours on this.
Oh, okay. I love how it's developing an understanding of who the person is, even remotely, so that you can develop that trust and that relationship and get to know them. Because I think that's another thing like we're good at, Latinas. I speak very wadsworth and like I give us all the all the accolades. I really believe we have a good sense of people. Like we can feel people. Yeah. And so, 1,000%. Reminding ourselves of that in order to develop the trust, it's like it's easier to develop the trust than we think as soon as we get to the people, right?
1,000%.
So before we get too far ahead, because you're giving all this free consultancy, what is the name of your consultant company and also the name of the podcast?
So the consultancy is called AR & Company. The podcast is called Stories of Scaling. And the first 2 seasons are just really this, right? Like me just talking at you on very specific things of how to improve your customer service, how to improve your team management, how to trust people as they're hiring them, how to hire, and then what to do if you have like team members that aren't performing. Even if you do all that during hiring, it happens sometimes.
And then that's going to bring up another cultural issue, I think.
Boundaries.
Yes.
I also have a whole podcast put on boundaries because, boundaries are fun times for our people.
What boundaries?
Exactly.
Come on over. Exactly. We can do everything. Don't worry. I don't need to sleep, eat. I don't need any well-being.
Nada. We could do everything for no money. Yes. We got you. Don't worry about it.
Seriously. Oh my gosh. Which we would, but it gets taken advantage of. Let's just say.
1,000%.
We all know AI from ChatGPT. How's it going to make things easier in the sense of people think, do the work for me? But that's not really what it is. So give us a short spiel of what is AI and why is it so important right now beyond the doing your work for you, which it's not going to do.
No. So AI it literally translates into artificial intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence acts like a second mind. It allows you to have a sounding board that you can communicate with, writtenly or speaking, to create and ideate and help you come up with stuff. It will not do your job for you. It will never do your job for you. It is artificial. It is not actual intelligence. While it can come up with some funny, creative things, it is coming up with things based off of the vast knowledge of the internet. So while that's sometimes more than what we have in our heads, it's still not going to just randomly come up with great ideas out of nowhere, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
People have a creative function in their brain that artificial intelligence will never be able to surpass. Right. At this point, it's just copying and pasting creatively, but copying and pasting.
Mm-hmm.
So something that we do a lot in my company is we've coded a few different GPTs or chatbots to kind of help us with different clients and different aspects of the business. Everything from like marketing to aligning strategy to implementing tech for different clients.
You need to train it as if it were an employee of your business.
Yes.
Able to think like your business?
Yeah. I love to say that like AI can be like one of your first hires when you're starting out, right? But you have to train it even more than you would train an employee. An employee, for the most part, is coming with some knowledge, right? They're coming with a marketing hat, with an ops hat, with a admin hat, right? That they've had a little bit of experience in this specialized focus. ChatGPT is very much a generalist.
Okay.
So you have to train it and talk to it and tell it, this is what I need you to do. So your prompts really need to be very structured, and you also need to constantly feed it data so that it understands, it can make better assumptions, really.
So that's data that you as a business owner, as an entity, as a business itself that you've orchestrated the documentation for. This is what you're feeding into it. Like, here is our onboarding. Maybe,
here's
how should we
here's
XYZ?
transcript from calls. Here's
blog articles. Everything that defines how you think and is for your business. Because then it's learning your mindset and your business points and how you communicate in order to be that higher. So that's a whole different element than what we've heard in the masses. What we've heard on social media. How it's being used for social media isn't how you should use it for your business necessarily, unless your business is content creation.
Even then, even business is content creation.
Yeah.
So I use it for content creation, but the amount of data that I fed into it first to create my content or to help me create content, because it doesn't create it like out of nowhere, is immense, right? So like I fed it things that I've written. I fed it like podcast episodes. I fed it transcripts. Yeah. So it's a little bit more like a copywriter than a full-on social media strategist. And then I can say, okay, based off of this information, give me a LinkedIn post, give me a social post, give me a whatever. It's great at repurposing, but I don't just tell it, here, make me a post today.
That's where the AI, if you were to do that, especially from a cultural point of view, any culture, if you were to just do that and you say, well, I want this to be for Latinas. Oh my gosh. What you get back is insane. I took some video of some. Like it's so bad. I did it without understanding AI completely. And I come from engineering land. So even though I was a great artist as a kid, that's what I wanted to do with my life. The engineering mind just like ate the creative mind for so long. And so I was really struggling to get the creative verbiage back out. And when I first was asking it, help me with this. This is for young professional Latinas who are wanting to listen about XYZ, whoever the guest was. And it would be like, hey, mummies. And it's like, what? And it was just like, I was like, this is so inappropriate. Like, don't do this. Yeah. But guessing, I think, trying to guess what your cultural mindset was ridiculous without teaching it the language. Like, you have to teach the language.
And then the other nice thing about it is that you can say, hey, do not use these words.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you
and it
can't tell
apologizes. It apologizes
Yeah,
more than people
does.
do.
It's so polite.
It's so polite. And I always thank it. I do. I say, oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
So it is very kind.
It's a very polite machine, but yeah, you have to be very careful. There's a lot of training that goes into AI models that people don't take into consideration when they're trying to use it for the first time.
Mm-hmm. That is really paramount. No, I went yesterday. I thought timing was insane. I went to the Stripe Sessions conference yesterday. It's here this week in San Francisco. Oh, it's so fun. It's so awesome.
I saw that and I was like, damn, I want to go.
Yes. Okay, next year. I went to the keynote speaker, Jensen Huang, NVIDIA. Really fun conversation, but really, really helped me as just a business person, as just a person on the planet right now, to understand why AI is so important. And what he said in some key points was, like you just said, AI is not going to take your job. But if you don't use AI, you will lose your job.
1,000%.
I love that phrase because it just simplified and got rid of everything that you had to consider. Yeah. And as a business, he said, as a business, you won't lose the business. Yeah. Because he was talking about acceleration of computing.
So I want you all to think about when computers first came out, right? And became mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
The computer did things that people could do 1,000 times faster.
As a structural engineer, I totally know this, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like,
so that's what AI is doing. It is taking what we can do on a computer, on the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And multiplying that exponentially, right? It just gets us there faster.
Yes. And which is the pivotal point, like, especially because this is your specialty. You're trying to get people there faster, more efficiently as a business. Right. And this is one of those building blocks that you need in order to do that.
So I've been talking a lot at different organizations about how to leverage AI in your business, because without it, you are going to be left behind. Everybody who decided that they weren't going to be on social media, right? Like, saying social media was a fad, it's never going to go anywhere. And now you still have mom and pops now trying to get on the social media train because they realize that it's cheap, free marketing.
Yes.
Right. This is going to be the thing that gets a lot of people to that next level. Even if you don't have a strategy business, even if you're a bakery, you can put your numbers in there, your financials, how fast you can get bread out of the oven, how many rolls that you can do with one person, like, right, whatever stats you have, put it into the system and have it analyze it for you and come up with ways to improve your operational efficiency.
What?
I love putting data into AI and having it analyze it for me. Like, fuck a pivot table. Like, here, take my Excel spreadsheet, give me some numbers, and then tell me what this means.
Okay, mind blown. Now I'm really going to geek down. So wait, but okay. I didn't know it did like actual data, like hard number data analysis.
And wait.
Yes.
And it cleans it for you.
Cleans it? What does that mean?
The data. So if your data is from like multiple sources and does not overlap easily,
it will figure it out.
It will clean up the data for you and then analyze it.
Oh my Lord. Okay, now I'm feeling threatened again.
No, don't feel threatened because it's only going to... Okay, so let's be real, right?
That's not the end game is what you're saying. That's not the end game. That's not the job.
No. Yeah, it's going to give you... It's going to be like a pivot table on crack, right? Like, it's going to give you some like really good analysis, but it's up to you to make decisions based off of that analysis. Right. What are the recommendations based off that analysis? Why are you recommending this to be the avenue that we go down, right? Like, why are we doing this way versus taking that avenue over there, right? So great for the analysis, but someone still needs to make sense of this.
Yes. Okay, this is bringing up two things again. My 2 points always again. In that, though, the AI is taking away all the mundanity of work so that you could focus more of your energy, more of your intelligence and brilliance in the creative aspect of it. That's going to make you further ahead than someone else, because it's not about how fast or how well you analyze. Well, it kind of is, but what you do with that in your own creative mindset to make you different.
Exactly. It's not about how quickly you clean the data. It's about how intuitive your analysis is based off of that data, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at a data analyst, you don't care that they can clean data.
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter to run SQL? Sure, because like they have to in their job.
Mm-hmm.
But now if AI can do that for you, then all that matters is that this person knows how to create a recommendation based off of that data, and a recommendation that's actually going to move the company forward.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I was in the Museum of Natural History talking about AI for a little bit last week, and somebody that was there speaking said that he spent a ton of time creating solutions so that he wouldn't have to work so hard. And that's really what this is, right? It's like allowing you to be creative while taking those mundane off of your plate, that you have more capacity, you have more white space, which is what you need, especially as somebody who's trying to create a business to move things forward.
Okay. Here's the second point. As an engineer, as someone who doesn't trust, I'm a structural engineer, but I know that even as the computers came in, my professor said, garbage in, garbage out. And if you don't understand that what's being fed to you is garbage, we're going to have problems. So how do we know? People are a little too trusting of the AI. How do we know it's not garbage coming out when you're talking about analytics or, processes that people just take and run with?
It's so one, it's based off of what you've already fed it, right? So what have you fed the model to begin with? Right. So if I've fed it a lot of my data, like how I like to work, how I work with my clients, data around my clients, then I'm much more trusting about what it's going to give me back.
And going back, just to ensure you're feeding your own data to get your own model, but it's also pulling in data, like you say, from this huge database of the internet and seeing what could happen. So someone might be feeding bad data in somewhere. So it goes back down to why AI cannot take your job, because you better know what your job is and you better do it well to begin with.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk about that bias, though, because again, the cultural narrative in the internet is vastly overwhelmed, I'm guessing, with the typical narrative that we're all trying to quiet down.
That's why ChatGPT gave you, hey, mommies, let's talk about X, Y, and Z. You have to train AI to do something. So whatever information you're training this model on is what is going to spit it back. So there have been big issues that have come out in like more private models. So for example, I think it was Amazon that came out with their ATS software that it was trained by a bunch of white men.
Right.
And because of that, their hiring rates, like it was literally discluding anybody who was not a white male. Because it was trained to only look at and approve, look for white males.
Right.
ChatGPT, if you're trying to become any kind of culturally relevant or like anything other than like proper suburban, like white man, it has trouble like walking that line.
Right.
And that's because the internet doesn't have a good way to kind of pull that in. Or the narrative that's on the internet is what we see on major networks, right? Where like you see the Latina maid or the Latina sex pot or the Latina whatever, and you're not really looking at what it is to be in a actual culturally diverse world.
Right. So how do we change that? How do we really impact while this AI is, like you say, it's not going anywhere, and it's already being established of like, okay, here's the building block. And this is what freaks me out. Here, I'm going to really geek down on you. This is what freaks me out, because what's here now is being considered, oh, this is an established building block. But that established building block does not have our voice in it, does not have
Correct.
our needs and our resources, doesn't have anything about us in it, but it's already being claimed of, we don't have to change this. This is an established building block.
Well, there's actually a lot of work happening to create unbiased or more inclusive versions of AI models.
Okay.
Right. So in the same way that we have to train AI models to sound like us or to think like us when we're leveraging it for our businesses, the people who create AI models need to be very aware of their bias. And unfortunately, they're not always aware of their bias. So there's been work and funding around creating a much more socially conscious AI model, or more socially conscious AI models in general. Like, right, there's a few different AI models that are just like more emotionally aware than ChatGPT, right? And one of them is called Claude. There's work to kind of help to surpass this sense of bias that we're currently experiencing. Unfortunately, because ChatGPT is like the biggest and most popular bot, it's what everybody is using.
So do we use multiple different AI models depending on what you need from it?
So, okay. So here's my stack. So if I'm looking for like pure statistics and I'm doing just research, right? If I'm doing like straight out research, I will use a combination of ChatGPT and Gemini. Gemini is the Google version, right? And it pulls from Google and it's a little bit more up to date than ChatGPT is. And it will give you some of the best statistics that I've seen out there. I love building custom GPTs in ChatGPT because it allows me to it becomes my catch-all, right? Like this is where I'm spending a lot of time in. So I create very specific GPTs with very specific jobs to do certain things for me. I like Claude when I have to loop in more emotion because ChatGPT is not emotional. It will not do emotion well. So Claude will give you like that. If you're trying to pitch an article for a women's magazine, right? It will give you that hook that people really would like. It'll help you with something like that, right?
Yeah.
Whereas ChatGPT is going to be very much much more direct and not as good.
Then you have to run it through the Canva magic, right, to make it more fun, more appealing. Yeah. All the different routes. I love this. I could go down forever. How does your culture, how does your background and your heritage enter into how you're operating in this space? Because I can't imagine, first off, that there's many Latinas in this space.
So it's interesting. So one, because I'm also neurodivergent, I am trying to create an app that leverages AI to help people who have neurodivergency manage projects, right? So think of if Notion and Sunsama had a baby, or like the Siri of project management, if Siri actually did what it was supposed to do. You'd be able to talk into it and then have this app really map the project for you and then give you like gentle reminders as the days go by. Okay, this is what needs to happen. You've entered this information. They haven't done anything with it. So it's really supposed to be almost like a project manager in your pocket, right?
Wow.
Now, we're building this off of ChatGPT initially, right? To get it off the ground, get some funding, whatever. But the goal here is to then create our own AI model to do this work, but also that is much more culturally relevant. That does not have that same bias, right? So my goal would be hopefully to work with a lot of amazing writers and copywriters that are from a number of different backgrounds to kind of make this sound better, more like us.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations. That's exciting. Okay. So was this done rapidly? It seems like you developed this pretty fast.
We're leveraging, to keep costs down, we're leveraging a low-code platform.
I heard this a lot yesterday, low code. Even this is something that young people know a lot about already. You want to describe it a little bit?
So the typical way of creating an app, right, or a SaaS product is you have a ton of developers or like a few developers working on the back end to create code, right? To write a ton of code, testing at every aspect of it. Low code platforms are almost like a Zapier or like Airtable automations, right? It allows you to drag and drop different widgets that already have the code behind it so that you're not there writing and testing each individual aspect, but it still allows for a ton of customization in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes the build a lot faster
Mm-hmm.
and a lot cheaper. So instead of spending
Yeah.
what would be a mortgage on an app that I'm not getting funded for yet.
Right. Wow. This is the beauty. This is the real, like, ta-da, that really, all this data information, all this really geeked out science information about is saying to you, it's like you now have the capacity, because of all this we've been talking about,
Mm-hmm.
between low code, open source, chat, and we're not going to say AI generated material. There's a very low entry point now. Like anybody can get in and be creating this is where they want the emphasis. Creating, right? Which is what we're really good at. Yeah. And so it's really the barrier of financial ability is out of the way.
It's really truly democratizing this like tech space that was very difficult to get into, right? Mm-hmm. And like, don't get me wrong, like we have plans to like custom code it, to build this AI model. And at that point, we're going to need $1 million to build this, right? And at that point, we're looking at the VC funding. Okay. But right now, I'm able to self-fund this and say, okay, this is the money that I have to spend on this.
It's so exciting.
I know.
It's so exciting.
But yeah, no, it's literally insanity what you can do these days with the tools out there. Mm-hmm. Again, I had to go the traditional route of finding engineers to code this. Mm-hmm. Like it would have taken years, and now we're able to get it out there,
like a lot of money,
and start asking for money, exactly, and start actually selling, and not have to go. Even though we're looking at like VC, not have to go the traditional VC route to get the initial build out there.
Right.
It never would have happened had we had to look for angel investors. Like I don't know anybody that has money like that to spend.
Well, and there's the bias again. What is the percentage of Latinas who are getting any kind of angel funding?
Something?
Anything.
Women are 2%. Latinas like something.
We're on point something when it comes to percentage. That's like ridiculous. And this is the power. This is why we're having this episode, ladies. This is like the power. Forget them. Let them go off on their system. We don't need them anymore. You have the power within your hands to take it, with some guidance to take it into your own capacity and get out there. Get out there without waiting for someone to throw money. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to do this cheaper, I could have taught myself how to leverage the platform they were doing, or they were leveraging.
Yes.
Didn't want to have to learn something else.
No, there's the burnout aspect. Like, stop.
Exactly.
Do it. So two things to that. Yesterday's episode with Karin Luna Ostaseski being the first and only, to this day, 500-year history, only woman to have brought a Scotch whiskey brand of her own to market. In 500 years.
I want to try that. I love Scotch.
SIA Scotch. SIA, SIA Scotch. Yes, this is the blendable Scotch, which is really smooth, very like light for you. Mm-hmm. But you know how many rejections she got from investors before she said, screw it? 100.
I'm sure. That does not surprise me.
100 rejections before she said, you know what? There's this thing called Kickstarter. Let me try that. And then boom, the world was like, yes, please, versus the gatekeepers were going, no way. No, we don't want you.
A lot of
You're
people
a woman.
Have been crowdfunding for that exact reason.
Okay.
Exactly. Like, this is such a boys' club. Yes. It's really exciting to be able to say, like, well, I'm going to make my own way then.
Bye. Yeah. I remember my brothers having this fort in our backyard. And they literally it was like a sitcom. They literally had a sign, no girls allowed. I just remember being like 6 and just kicking the door in with my one foot. Like, never let that boys club get in your way. Like,
so remember the beginning of this episode when I was like, I shot my shot?
Yeah.
I took my shot? That's how.
You just jumped?
I just jumped.
Yeah.
I'm just jumping. So it's taken me at least a year to like finally say, okay, I'm going to do this. Last year, I started working and I started leveraging ChatGPT in this way, right? I started putting my project, I started talking to it and saying, this is what I need to do. I'm creating a project plan. I'm creating a course. I'm creating a whatever, right? Like, this is what needs to happen. Help me come up with a project plan, right? This is what we're doing. Help me come up with a project plan, because I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
I'm not good at seeing the big vision and like breaking it out.
Okay.
Transcribe what I was talking about, copy that transcript, put it into ChatGPT, and then copy and paste what ChatGPT spit out for me and put it into my project management tool. And I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing on the planet and is so inefficient. There has to be a better way. Right. And then I started thinking about all the people that I support in my consultancy. And I was like, they struggle so much with leveraging a project management tool because they can't go from idea or like vision to break, or they can break things down, but then like, how do you track it? It feels like, especially when you have a small business, sometimes it feels like a project management tool is just another thing that you have to get done. So that's where this idea came from. So I've been ruminating on it for over a year and decided that I was going to start working with somebody I knew to help build on this low-code platform Bubble. And then that didn't work out, and wound up talking to somebody who also was building on a low-code platform. She recommended this developer UI agency that I'm now working with. We had a call. Everything was fabulous. They were more excited than I was about this project. And like literally before I even signed the contract, they were sending me research articles about neurodivergent design. So I knew that it was a match made in heaven, right?
Yeah. They were going to support you. They saw where you were going with it.
Whether you're neurodivergent or not.
Yeah.
They want something that's easier to use and more customizable. We can do that. There's ways of getting that done.
So you found the support out there. Are you feeling like there's more resources out there for people who aren't as biased in their mindset?
So yes. So one thing that I've done is found a lot of supportive groups. Now, the supportive groups wind up costing money, but it's worth it, right? It's worth finding people who've either been there or who are going to go on that journey with you.
As peers.
So like now for example, I have a VC fund list of everything from accelerators to pitch competitions to angel investors. That's almost 2,000 lines long, right? 2,000 lines of data that I've collected from various different sources, because this is my brain, right? I deep dive into things. And I've shared that with a few people because like that's a resource that people are like, okay, how the hell do I get funding for all these really cool things that we're trying to build?
Right.
How to share the resources. And something else that I've actually like started seeing a lot of, which is really interesting, is that a lot of VCs, the new age of VC, are much more open source or open in general than your traditional VC funds.
It's a different mindset.
It's a very different mindset.
Yeah.
So they are posting on LinkedIn. They are putting out applications for you to pitch to them. They are putting out like newsletters, which some of these newsletters are gold. Like really, really, truly great newsletters for you to things for you to think about as a founder, right?
Okay.
Not just like how to get money, but really things to think about as somebody founding something new. And I've given myself my own crash course on what it is to build a tech startup. I've done my research, right? Like so here's the thing, right? We have the internet. We have AI. We have these resources that we did not have 10 years ago. Well, okay, I'm aging myself. We didn't have 30 years ago because we had all this 10 years ago too, except for the AI.
Well, not access to it though.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Access is new.
But now we have access to this information and people are talking about it, right? This is the time that people are outing how ridiculous the VC space is.
Yes.
And people are really trying to democratize the VC space as well. And if people democratize the VC space, then all of a sudden the founder space is also much more democratized.
That is an amplifier right there. That's the way we look at this podcast. You're spectacular. But the fact that by one episode, you have just launched it around the world. It's that amplifier that everybody wants. They don't need help in the sense of how to hold my hand, just give it to me. Just get my name out there further.
Exactly.
And in front of the right people. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because that's something that I would say to myself all the time when I was still in corporate, like when I would be looking for the next opportunity. It's like, if I just get my resume in front of the right
Yeah.
person, I know that I can do an amazing job at this job. Right.
Right.
And it's just getting that one opportunity, having that one person say yes. So it doesn't matter if 100 people say no. If you can find that one person or that one community that can say yes and support you and get you to that dream,
Yeah.
that's all that matters.
But that's the
Right?
hardest part. That's the
But
hardest
it's the
part.
hardest
And when I
part. It is.
listen to like Annette Chavez Macias having 13 rejections when she was trying to publish Big Chicas Don't Cry, or listening to Karin having 100, well, even 80 rejections, even entering into the space, even getting people to work with her to blend the scotch, 80 rejections. You really have to have a sense of belief that
Oh, yeah.
not even necessarily in the product, but in the
yourself.
mission. In the
But if
mission,
you
why
don't-
are you doing this?
But
Why?
if you don't
why?
have
Why?
that sense of belief,
Mm-hmm.
you're never going to succeed in your business anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It is that
that's
first pushback. Like, how much do you believe in yourself and what you're doing and why you're doing it? To just go, whatever. It's like, keep on swimming. It's like, get
yeah,
out there.
exactly. It's,
Yeah.
we're all Dory. Just
Yeah.
keep going.
Just
on
keep
swimming.
going. Doesn't matter.
The funny thing about having ADHD is I have ideas all the time,
Right.
like ways to solve problems, right? So I literally, in my Notion board, I have an entire page of just like additional business opportunities that I want to tackle. But this was the one that would not let me sleep at night.
Okay. Then you know that's your go-to. There we go.
This is how I knew.
Put your
I knew that I needed to tackle this first, and then everything else will figure out eventually. Everything else will get figured out. But this one, I was like, I need to do something about this. And like, I need to do something about this now.
Where do you go to calm all this? Where do you go to just step away and give yourself time to refuel?
Yeah, that is a great question. So one, I get off my phone. I get off the TV, off the computer. So going out, having coffee with friends, going out for walks with my kids, watching a Disney movie with them, right? Like trying to just get off of my phone as much as possible, like painting, coloring, really being like present. I find when I'm really truly stuck and can't get work done, it's because my brain has not turned off.
Yes. When you wake up in the middle of the night thinking,
yes,
and you're like,
yes.
what?
That actually happened to me this week.
Right?
And like, I was like, the only reason that I'm not in a cafe right now is because I knew I had the podcast interview.
We could do it in the cafe in person. That's what I really want to do.
Yes. So like that's what I do, right? I go outside, I switch up my location, I make sure I sit by the sun, I move my body. Like I try to become much more tactile than just sitting here and thinking in my body, right? I move that energy around because otherwise, again, it gets stuck.
Yeah. Take the energy off your brain, off your mind. I like to say, like I told my daughters, do things that don't have a known outcome, because your brain gets taken out of the picture. Is it because you have that outcome? Oh, I'm going to run 5 miles, or I'm going to do this, or it has an end goal, and your brain's going to stay connected.
Yeah.
But if you do something that has no known outcome, then your brain just quiets.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. I love that.
Last question for you.
Yeah.
What do you, for yourself, what would be the descriptive of a metaverse? You walk through a door and you walk into this other world. What does that look like for you? That's just perfect.
There's a lot more green space. Everything is walkable. So like thinking of cities in mile radiuses versus like suburban
sprawl
expanses. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that we're living a little bit more on top of each other? Sure. But if things are walkable, if things are much closer together, you have much more community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? This idea of the integration or the reintegration of community versus this individualization that we have in this country.
Right.
Much more socialist, right? Like there's a sense of safety no matter what's going on in your life.
Wow.
And there's a sense of creativity, of like the value of creativity, right? And not just because I have a great business idea and I'm going to creatively figure it out. It's like this value of actual creativity and what it means to be a creative.
Oh my God, just tearing up. That's beautiful. Okay, can you make that your second project?
I will do my best.
Thank you so much. This is such
This was such a good conversation.
This is so fantastic. This episode, I just love it. I love, feeding that side of my mind. Like, ooh. And I learned so much from you, and it's just see the power of it rather than the threat. Everything about this episode is just like opportunity, making life easier, getting to what we're trying to do creatively faster. I love this. The power is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And what is a good way for people to get a hold of you then if they want to talk more and build community?
I'm all about building community. So feel free to find me on Instagram. That is probably where you're going to find me the most. So my Instagram is arianarodriguez.co. That is also my website URL. Perfect. So feel free to hop on there. And then I am occasionally like hanging out on LinkedIn lately. So you can always look for me over there too. Awesome.
Yes, we will. Thank you, Ariana. This has been a blessing. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. And yes, may your metaverse be our next tomorrow immediately.
That was such a good conversation.
Ariana Rodriguez, Dominican founder of AR & Company. I told you she was a people person. Are you not re-energized and relieved that Ariana is sharing her vision and intelligence to make the entrepreneur life easier and more successful? Community is everything, absolutely everything, because we're not intended to do this life alone on any level, ladies. It is way too big, and doing it alone, even when we have to, can easily lead to burnout, taking you off your path and leading to emotions that you just don't need to feel. You're not alone. We are totally here for you, and as you heard in the first few seconds of this episode, Ariana and I had the best conversation as total strangers, realizing that we see life, especially in the humor in life, the same way. Join us next week as we do the 15-minute Pod Club episode of this full-length glory with Ariana Rodriguez and pull out the gems of life lessons that apply to all of us, the commonality that we all share, and the empowering words that make life easier because we feel seen. Reach out to Ariana on her social media handles and listen to another Latina podcast, Stories of Scaling. Now that you know how cool and brilliant Ariana is and have had a taste of her leadership skill, you can reach out to her for all your business needs or to go out on that glorious walk and turn the brain off, be in the sunshine, move your body. Really appreciate you sharing this with your friends, celebrating the women we have on the podcast, the shout outs they give, and the beauty of all things Latina. Step into your truth, ladies. Ciao. We love that you have subscribed to this podcast and continue to champion women who understand the life of all things Latina. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Encuentras Your Voice podcast so you don't miss a single episode. They will automatically drop into your listening device each week. And we'd really, really appreciate if you take a moment to add to the reviews that we already have. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you're hoping to hear, and we will get there. Share this with your friends and family to help us grow our comunidad and keep following us on our social media. Tu Encuentras Your Voice. We are so grateful to you for helping us grow this community and would love to learn of all the amazing Latinas who you know are creating the world we thrive in. So reach out to me on social media at Encuentras Your Voice, and let's keep leaning into our authenticity in pride. Help us make Encuentras Your Voice the place where you are 100% represented.